Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Daily Gwei Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today is the 10th of March, 2025. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So I did miss last Friday's episode of the Refuel, apologies for that, but unfortunately I'm also going to miss Wednesday's episode this week, and most likely Friday's episode as well. I'm traveling to Sydney tomorrow to attend an event, not an Ethereum conference or anything like that. It's more of a policy event, specifically to Australia, so I'm going to be there. It's got to do with crypto, of course. I don't really go to events for other things. But yeah, so I'll be there and I won't be able to do a refuel. Definitely not on Wednesday and probably not on Friday, which means the next one will probably be next week. But there is a lot to talk about today anyway, so let's go and get into that. So I think the biggest news of the last few days was the announcement that President Trump has signed an executive order to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Now, this has been talked about for quite a while now. I've talked about it in the context of an Ethereum strategic reserve and how I actually think that Ethereum is more strategically important than Bitcoin to the US, but I'm not going to rehash all of those arguments here, but I do want to address some of the confusion over this. So the first thing is that what they've done here is that they've established a strategic Bitcoin reserve that is specific to Bitcoin, which essentially means that they have a bunch of seized BTC. I think it's like 200,000 BTC, most of which came from Silk Road, that has been seized and not sold. This executive order apparently puts forward the notion that that BTC won't be sold, but taxpayer money won't be used to acquire more BTC for now, basically. So essentially what they have is what they already have. So they're not going to be buying more BTC for now. Then they have a separate thing called a digital asset stockpile, which is what they're bucketing everything except BTC into. So ETH and XRP and Sol and ADA, those other ones that they announced, would go into this stockpile. And there was also in the order a stipulation that at times whoever makes these decisions can decide to sell these other assets that they have. So if they've got a bunch of seized ETH, they could make the decision to sell that ETH for BTC. But it is very unclear, I think, at least from what I've seen, about how this is going to play out going forward. I'm pretty sure that to buy new BTC with taxpayer money, I think I'm 100% sure on this, they would need to get that through Congress, which seems to be something that is not going to happen anytime soon. And in terms of trading other assets for BTC, I don't know how that works in practice either. I don't know kind of what checks and balances are in place for that, what red tape there is in that. So essentially, I think that while it's cool that the US government is doing something like this, I guess to an extent, it's more of a big time acknowledgement of, I guess, these assets, these digital assets as real and valuable assets. And people say it's bullish because it signals to the rest of the world that they should follow the US and create their own strategic reserves. I actually take the other side of it a little bit, and this may delve into politics a little bit here, but politics plays a big role here. So I think that I disagree that the rest of the world is going to follow along with this, because if you're seeing what's happening right now outside of crypto, the US is becoming very isolated, where they're essentially being very aggressive to their long-held allies like Canada and Europe. They seem to, the US as a whole, seems to want to bring everything in-house again and basically just like become very self-sufficient, become quite isolated from the rest of the world. At least that's my read and from what I'm seeing and how the current the current government is treating this. So if that's the case, and if they're doing things that other countries don't want to follow, then why would they follow them into doing this, right? Like it's a thing of, it doesn't matter what the US is doing. If the US is setting this kind of stage that, hey, we're no longer going to be like the world police, we're not going to meddle in other kind of countries' affairs, we're not going to help other countries, we're not going to respect our long-held alliances here. We're going to become very nationalized. We're going to turn inside. We're going to basically turn inward, and that's whatever. Like the US obviously do that. People voted for that. That's what it is. But I just don't see the connection now that other nation states are going to follow the US on a crypto reserve or a Bitcoin reserve. It seems like they're going to be doing the opposite of that. And that's just speculation on my behalf. I don't know exactly what's going to happen here, but that was my read on that. So I don't necessarily think that it's something that other states are going to copy here. Maybe smaller ones will, I don't know. But in terms of like the EU, for example, I highly doubt the EU is going to get its own strategic kind of Bitcoin reserve anytime soon. I definitely don't think that's going to happen, honestly, for a long time. I'd obviously be surprised if it does. And if it does, I'll admit that I was wrong, of course. But yeah, I'm just not seeing it there. And the second side of this is that a lot of people were disappointed in the fact that there's no like net buying happening here. And that's why the markets, I think, have reacted, or at least it's in part why the markets have reacted negatively to this. And I'm actually going to talk about the markets a little bit at the end of today's episode. But essentially, I think the market and people were expecting that the US government would become a net new buyer of at least BTC, where essentially they'd go out and they'd acquire as much BTC as they can using whatever money they can. As I said before, to use taxpayer money to do this would require the approval of Congress. It would also stir up a lot of shit because a lot of taxpayers in the US don't want their tax money going towards this. And the US right now is trying to cut a lot of spending as well. And people can argue, well, if you're putting it into BTC, you're not spending it, you're investing it, right? If you're buying BTC, you're protecting against devaluation of the dollar. Yeah, okay, that's fine. But like, what happens if they buy it and then BTC just doesn't do anything for a while or goes down for a while? Then that's not going to look like they've been saving money. They've net lost money now. So there's a lot of different things, a lot of different kind of threads being pulled at here. And I would say the net result of this executive order is that it's basically neutral. Like, it's not positive, it's not negative, it's like neutral. I think it's just not what people were expecting and not what people necessarily wanted. I don't think it's going to damage crypto at all. I do think it's kind of funny to see people, cheering this on like it's the thing that it's like it's the biggest thing that's ever happened to crypto. It's like, guys, like, crypto began with Bitcoin as a way to detach money from a nation state, or from any nation state, to get away from fiat money, to basically get away from centralized controls. So cheering on something like this is really the exact opposite of what crypto began as and what Bitcoin began as. And I know people can do some mental gymnastics here and make up different arguments about how, well, every nation state's going to get involved. That means no one owns Bitcoin as a network. No one controls Bitcoin. It's still decentralized. And it's like, okay, fair enough, but at the same time, like, it's really just the US in terms of like the big nation states doing this right now. There have been smaller ones that have done this, but they're inconsequential. Sailor buys more BTC than these smaller nation states do. So when you're looking at it like that, it becomes inconsequential there. So I think from my perspective, this is like a net neutral thing. I don't consider it to be bullish. Don't consider it to be bearish. I'm going to wait and see what happens. If the US government actually does start net buying assets, BTC and others, or just BTC, obviously that could be viewed as a bullish thing. I don't know what it's going to do to the price, obviously. How much BTC are they going to be buying? Who knows? So on and so forth. But still, I guess, like, it is a monumental occasion for crypto that we're getting such, I guess, recognition from the US government. But I kind of am in two minds about celebrating that because of the fact that, I mean, even if this happened for ETH, I would still be in two minds about it because it obviously goes against a lot of the principles and values that this ecosystem kind of stands for. And I'm going to talk about those at the end of the episode as well. But yeah, that's kind of the way I see it. But anyway, enough about the strategic reserve. That was my general thoughts on that there. All right, so Devconnect has been officially announced to be happening in Buenos Aires in Argentina from the 17th to the 22nd of November of this year. So as you guys know, the Ethereum Foundation runs two conferences, Devconnect and DevCon, and they run them on alternating years. So last year was DevCon, this year is Devconnect. And I think I mentioned the other day on the Refuel that it was soft teased that Devconnect was going to happen in Argentina. Well, now we have confirmation. I am like 90+% certain I will be going to this. As you guys know by now, I don't attend many conferences, especially not ones that take me 20+ hours to get to. But when it comes to the conferences run by the Ethereum Foundation, like, there's no risk of it being shit, basically, because it's going to be all Ethereum. It's non-profit. They're not trying to sell anything. And all my friends usually go. So it's like, there's no risk in me going in terms of risk of having a crappy time, like making that journey to just have a crappy time. So as I said, I'm 90+% certain I'll be there in November. I'm sure a lot of you will be there as well. Devconnect is a bit different to DevCon in that usually it takes place kind of across the city. So like on multiple venues, there's not really one main venue. There may be like a hacker house, essentially, where that's like the central kind of, I guess, meeting spot or shelling point, if you will. But most of the stuff feels more like a kind of side event thing where like there's lots of side events, but they are technically the main events, and you go there and you're supposed to like experience the city as well as experiencing the conference. And I'm really happy that it's happening in Buenos Aires in Argentina because I've never been there before. And obviously there are a lot of, if you spend any time on crypto Twitter or if you're aware of the, you may already be aware of this, there is a lot of people in crypto that are from Argentina because, I mean, this isn't the only reason, but this is a major reason, but because their currency has been greatly devalued over time. They actually do still live and have lived through hyperinflation, have lived lived through the realities of that, and they turned to crypto to help them there, whether that be stable coins or investing in ETH. I remember Mariano Conti, who was at Maker at the time, this was a while ago in 2019 at DevCon, he announced that he actually put his entire paycheck into ETH. So he was using ETH as an actual store of value. He wasn't just putting it into USD stablecoins, he was putting it into ETH. And that was back when ETH was like $200 or something like that. So obviously that worked out quite well for him. But yeah, they really do live and breathe crypto in Argentina, especially in Buenos Aires there. So I'm looking forward to going. I hope to see many of you there, but obviously more details will come out as things get closer to the date here. So it's happening November 17th to the 22nd. So still a while away, towards the end of the year there, but a great way, I think, to finish out the year when it happens. All right, so as you guys know, the hard forks of both Holeshki and Sepolia for Pectra didn't exactly go as planned. Holeshki ended up being like pretty bad, I think, in the end, in terms of how much coordination it required to get the network back online, or to get Holeshki back online. And I explained on one of the refuels that it wasn't due to the Pectra EIPs, it was due to a deposit contract thing, which ended up being fixed in the end. But the funny thing is that the same issue happened on Sepolia for a different reason. So the thing with these deposit contracts is that they're actually different on these networks as they are on mainnet, and they're actually done like on a case-by-case basis. But essentially, if you want a full recap of what happened on Sepolia, Marius here from the Go Ethereum team put together a recap. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But he said here, it's an interesting story about edge cases and edge case bugs, coordination, of course, because it's quite difficult to coordinate with these things. And apparently there was an attacker who swooped in on Sepolia and made the core devs' lives much harder. So you can go give this a read. It's a short read. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But it's funny to see that there was an attacker on a test net. So you can see how adversarial these environments are. Obviously, there's attackers getting nothing out of attacking a testnet other than just wanting to cause chaos. They're not making any money from this. This is why we take security so seriously within the Ethereum ecosystem, because of the fact that there are always people willing to attack. And whether that be like nation state level, like Lazarus Group in North Korea, or whether that be just some script kiddie that's having some fun. Maybe it's some teenager who's like some wonder kid who wants to make a name for themselves and do something like this. There's always going to be adversaries out there, and that's why the Ethereum ecosystem as a whole, not just the protocol layer, but the L2s, the apps, the infrastructure, is built with security in mind, because we've seen plenty of hacks happen, even though we do take security seriously. And the only way to get better and the only way to prevent more is to make sure that we have a culture of taking security seriously, which is exactly what we have. And we need to maintain that in the Ethereum ecosystem. There are plenty of other ecosystems out there that do not take security seriously at all. There is an infamous quote from he who shall not be named. You probably know who it is, but that said that he valued speed over security. And I was like, what? Like, that is insane. And so were a lot of other people. That is absolutely insane. When you're dealing with money, because we're not just dealing with some Web 2 app where if it goes down for a few hours, people will complain that it's down, but they're not going to lose any money, right? Whereas with crypto and with Ethereum and with things built on top of Ethereum, there's a very real risk of losing real money. So you have to take it extremely seriously, way more seriously than maybe a bank would take their security, because there is at least some recourse with banks. With crypto, there's very little recourse, especially if, for example, the hack happens and the attacker keeps their proceeds in ETH or bridges it to BTC. There's very little that can be done in that situation other than blacklisting addresses, but there are still ways to cash out those assets. They've still got monetary value on them, and you can wash them through different things. Obviously, you can wash them through things like Tornado Cash. That is obviously the dark side of a mixer, of a privacy protocol, is that it also allows criminals and people who hack different or steal different funds to wash their money. But I guess that's the price to pay there. But my overall point here is that when it comes to crypto, when it comes to Ethereum, we should always value security over speed. Yes, we want to ship fast and we want to stay competitive. We want to make sure that we're shipping what we need to be shipping in a timely manner, but not at the expense of security. It should never come at the expense of security. And that's a delicate balance. It's not something that there is really an answer to. It's like this question of, should we have more security or should we go faster? Okay, if we're going to go faster, how much security are we willing to sacrifice? Like, for example, if there is a 1% chance of a bug at any given time on the core protocol, it's probably lower than that, but just for sake of argument, if there's a 1% chance at any time of a bug happening on the core protocol, are we comfortable with that chance going up to 2% but it means that we can move a lot faster. So let's say we start doing forks every 3 months instead of every year. Are we comfortable with the risk of a bug going up to 2%, like basically doubling for 1 to 2% in order to get that extra speed? Maybe we are, maybe we're not, but there's no definitive answer here. It's not something that we can just say, okay, we are or we aren't. We have to consider all the different variables at play, and then also coordinate around an answer through a widely distributed set of stakeholders. It's not easy, guys. Very, very much not easy. But as I said, the Ethereum ecosystem still has a very strong culture of security over speed, and we just maybe need to be a little bit faster and still focus on security, but we can, I think, be a bit faster there. But anyway, you can go read this incident recap. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, speaking of the core protocol, there was a fresh ETH research post here from Pop. So Pop, Nishant, and Chirag here, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. But this is about doubling the blob count with a new networking protocol called Gossip Sub version 2. So you can go give this a read. I'll link in the YouTube description below. I'm not going to cover this in particular. I more just want to cover the fact that the appetite to scale blobs right now, guys, is massive. It's enormous. Everyone in the Ethereum ecosystem, from core developers and researchers to users, want to scale blobs and want to scale them as much as possible. We don't and shouldn't be focusing on short-term, medium-term value accrual. We should be focusing on providing as much blob space and as much block space as possible in order to capture all future market share. We need to make sure that we can do that, because if we only focus on value accrual now and not capturing more market share, then we're only going to capture a small pie or a small part of a small pie rather than capturing a large part of a large pie. So that's the kind of logic here, and I think we're doing a really good job of that. But we do need to scale up blobs. We've still got the increase from 3/6 blobs to 6/9 in Pectra, but we need to go way beyond that. We need to basically 10x that. We need to 100x that, and we are. PeerDAS, obviously has a very strong appetite for PeerDAS to go live before the end of the year. That will give us another huge scalability increase for blobs. We're kind of lucky right now that the market's quiet in that we have a little bit more time, but it's still critical to get this on the network. So as I said, all the researchers and core developers seem to be very aligned on this. A lot of people are working on it. I am extremely bullish on us shipping a lot of blobs and making sure that we can service L2s and give them the space that they need in order to scale Ethereum. All right, as you guys know, there was a phishing attack, or I guess like a targeted phishing or targeted attack on Bybit the other week, where $1.5 billion worth of ETH was stolen. It ended up being an attack on the Safe wallet interface itself, so the Safe multisig wallet, and that wasn't caught at the time. And so there's been a pretty big ecosystem push in order to improve on this. So 0x Miko here, who is the founder of Gearbox Protocol, has put together a tool that everyone can use. And he said here, I'm excited to announce that we have open sourced SafeWatcher, which is a monitoring tool that notifies you of all changes to your Safe account. One of their most significant features is that the bot will alert you if someone attempts to create a malicious transaction using a delegate call. This should prevent hacks similar to those that happened with Bybit. So you can go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But this is the stuff that you get when there is a set of open contracts, basically an open API on Ethereum. You get people from the community coming together and being like, I can build something that can help with this, and they do, and then it's free for everyone to use. It's open source. People can go and protect themselves from things like hacks, or they can use, for example, the Uniswap contracts with a new interface if someone was to build that. So that is really the power of an open standard here and an open API, which is exactly what smart contracts are on top of Ethereum. They're really, when you boil it down to it, they're an open API that anyone can interact with, that anyone can build stuff on. So I'm really glad to see this here. But you can go check that out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so there seems to be I don't know what the source of this is, but there seems to be like a rumor circulating that Coinbase is looking to release a tokenized version of their coin stock. Now, I quote tweeted this by saying, it seems obvious that this will be issued on Ethereum/Base. I'm pretty sure they'll issue it on Base. Like, it makes no sense for them to issue it anywhere else. And obviously that can be bridged to other L2s and bridged to Ethereum. I'm curious to see if they're going to issue it on Ethereum L1 and then bridge it over to Base so that Ethereum L1 is the ultimate settlement here. We'll have to see what they do with that. But I mean, I saw some comments from people speculating that this would be issued on other chains. Why would they do that? Like, Coinbase are the creators of the largest L2 in Base. They're extremely Ethereum aligned. They're very deep in the Ethereum ecosystem. It makes absolutely no sense sense for them to launch this anywhere else. So look out for that. Look, we'll see what happens there. But I do think it stands to be able to kick off tokenization season. If people see Coinbase doing this, other companies might want to follow suit. I know Robinhood is making a really big push into tokenization and real world assets generally. I wonder what that looks like. Do they team up with Coinbase or do they do their own thing? Because there's this weird thing right now where Coinbase is really strong in crypto, not so strong in TradFi. Robinhood very strong in TradFi, not so strong in crypto. So would working together be better for both of them, or are they just going to silo themselves off and do their own thing? We'll see what happens there. It's kind of hard to know there, but I do think that both companies are extremely aligned on wanting to bring the TradFi ecosystem into crypto, want to bring them on chain in any way possible. And one of the quickest ways to do that, I think, is to tokenize stocks, because I haven't bought like coin. I mean, I don't really dabble in stocks, but I probably would be more inclined to do it if I could buy them on chain. And yes, I know that it's an IOU. I know that it's centralized, but that's the same thing I know with stable coins. Like, I know that I don't technically own it. I mean, it's the same thing with, I guess, brokerage accounts a lot of the time. Unless you actually request a stock certificate itself, you're pretty much like letting them custody it for you. All the ETFs, they're all just custodied by these companies. You don't actually own it yourself. I mean, you do technically and legally own it, but ultimately the settlement is with these companies that custody it for you. So the same would be true for like a tokenized coin. Probably something like a BlackRock would manage it, for example, where you're just buying an IOU, which I think is fine, honestly. If you're just speculating on these assets, you don't plan to use them to vote on things or whatever, you're just speculating on it, I think that's totally fine there. But I guess keep an eye out for that. I think that's going to be a huge theme going forward. It's already been a huge theme with stablecoins in terms of real-world assets, but I think when it comes to tokenizing stocks, that's going to be another big theme going forward as well. All right, last up here, I just wanted to talk about a tweet that Danny Ryan put out in reply to Zach Witkoff, who is the co-founder of World Liberty Fi. So there was that meeting that happened last week, which I actually didn't even talk about, that crypto summit meeting on Friday, that ended up being like, I don't know if I'd call it a nothing burger, but it's essentially very like different to what people were expecting it to be. I think people look at this meeting and are like, oh my god, like the top people from crypto and all the thought leaders and all the people who built businesses in crypto, they're meeting with the president. They're going to announce something huge, and they announced the strategic reserve stuff, which I talked about earlier. But I think for a lot of people, they were expecting more, so it ended up being a nothing burger. But Zach here asked, what should he talk about at this summit, so before the summit took place. And Danny Ryan replied, he should talk about the fact that Ethereum is an open, neutral, decentralized infrastructure that must be the foundation for the future of the US and global economic activity. Neutral infrastructure provides a universal, persistent value proposition to any application or user, empowering them to refine, extend, and build upon that neutral stratum to meet an endless set of evolving needs. Systems that are biased, controlled, and otherwise not decentralized are fundamentally narrower, constricting innovation, encouraging local rather than global maxima, hampering free market growth, and ultimately leading us to a more brutal outcome in an increasingly dynamic world. Decentralization truly matters if we're aiming for the largest possible positive impact on the US and the world, and Ethereum remains our best bet. Preaching to the choir, obviously, with myself and you guys listening in here. I'll link this tweet in the YouTube description below if you want to go read it for yourself and read some of Danny's replies. But I think this is critically important to understand, is that if you want to build on a new technology and you want to obviously make sure that what you're building on isn't, quicksand or isn't like some house of cards, you want to build on something that is fundamentally decentralized, that isn't controlled by any one party, that can't just be shut down by your enemies. Like China can't shut down Ethereum, just like the US can't shut down Ethereum. So it is open and neutral and decentralized. Anyone can build on top of it. You can build whatever you want on it. You can have whatever controls you want over it too. Like you can have, for example, if you're a TradFi institution and you want to build an L2 on Ethereum, yeah, it's not going to be decentralized if you have controls over it, but hey, that fits your needs. You can build whatever you want. You build your own intranet that plugs into the wider on-chain economy. But the backbone of it, the settlement layer in Ethereum L1 is decentralized. It's not like just because you have centralized controls, other people can stop you from doing what you want. For example, if you were to deploy your own L2 on Ethereum and you have centralized controls around that, one of your competitors can't come along and say, well, I'm going to kick you off of Ethereum. You can't use Ethereum anymore. No, they can't do that. And this actually happened a lot in Web 2, where I think I've mentioned this before, but on Facebook and other platforms early on, they allowed people to come in and build whatever they wanted on these set of open APIs. There were limitations to what you could build. You had to follow certain rules. You couldn't build things that would obviously spam the spam the site and stuff like that. But then that functionality got killed and brought in-house. So essentially they rug pulled all these people building on top and did it all in-house, and essentially just internalized everything and killed off the competition. You can't do that on Ethereum. You can't kill off the competition like that. There's no one that controls Ethereum. So with that in mind, it means that builders have a confidence that they can build on Ethereum without someone being their competitor or their enemy as a nation state coming in and preventing them from doing that. That is really the power here, guys. That is what we should be focused on most, honestly, and that is what decentralization gives you. So I'm glad that Danny put it into better words than I could, and as I said, I'll link his tweet in the YouTube description below, but I figured it was just worth highlighting that there. But yeah, so I've got a few minutes left here, and I did want to say I wanted to touch on the markets again. I put this comment in the Daily Gwei Discord channel, and it was basically a repeat of what I said the last time I talked about the markets, but I'm going to repeat this one more time because it seems people either aren't listening or don't really I guess like care to take on board what I'm saying, but I think it's really important for people to understand this. So when it comes to the markets generally, you've heard me say this a million times, but markets, crypto, stock markets, real estate market, whatever it is, they hate uncertainty. That is the number one thing. If you listed through like the top 10 things that negatively affect markets, uncertainty would be at the top. We've seen this time and time again, and I think that we're currently in one of the most uncertain periods that we've been in a very long time globally. And I talked about this again on the Refuel last time, but just to reiterate here, when you have the president of the most wealthy nation on earth, the nation that has the reserve currency with USD, the nation that's considered the most powerful nation on the planet, it's a superpower, right? When you have the president of that nation waking up every other day and saying stuff that just sounds insane, that is uncertainty. And that is not just uncertainty of the, I guess, like of the local kind. That is global uncertainty. It's not just uncertainty for the crypto markets or for the stock market or for people's livelihoods or for people's life in general outside of their financial well-being. It's just global uncertainty on a massive scale here. And some examples, as I've given before as well, Trump waking up and saying and tweeting out, we want to make Canada the 51st state. Like that. That is insane, guys. That is not normal thing to do. That is absolutely insane. Canada is the US's closest ally. For the US president to say that, to effectively, I mean, in so many words, he didn't declare war on Canada, but he basically implied that he wanted to. Even if you think it's some kind of like negotiation tactic or you think it's some kind of 5D chess that he's playing, regardless of any of that, just saying that alone is very disastrous for relations between Canada and the US, relations between the US and other nation states, and it really erodes trust in the US as a nation. So essentially you have all this uncertainty piling up, and you're seeing it play out, not just in crypto, but in the stock markets now. When you're dealing with so much uncertainty, and you think that, well, okay, I want to take risk off the table, you're going to sell your assets and you're going to go into cash. You're going to be like, okay, I'm going to sit in cash for a while. I'm going to wait and I'm going to see where everything ends up. Is Trump actually going to go ahead with his tariffs, which he seems to have so far? Okay, is he actually going to go ahead with putting troops on the ground or declaring war on not even just Canada, but like Greenland? Is he going to go try take Greenland? Is he going to go try take Panama? Is he actually going to and the war with Russia and Ukraine? But how is that going to work? Is he going to favor Russia over Ukraine? It certainly looks like he is right now, right? And that meeting with Zelensky where he just gaslit him the whole time. Like, regardless of your politics, guys, regardless if you're left, right, up, down, whatever you are, like if the president was a Democrat, I'd be saying the same thing. If they were saying the same things and doing the same things that Trump is doing here. It's uncertainty, markets hate it, and until that uncertainty goes away, or until markets have confidence that that uncertainty goes away, I do think the markets are going to have a very tough time going up, especially in a high interest rate environment. Who knows what that's going to be like towards the end of the year? Are rates going to come down? Are we going to get quantitative easing again? Is quantitative tightening going to stop? These are all unknowns and all lots of uncertainty in the world right now. We actually are quite literally seeing a shift in the world order from US dominance to who knows dominance, because as I mentioned earlier, the US seems to be turning inward a lot. It seems to be cutting its ties with the rest of the world, and for better or worse, right? Who knows if that's good for them or not? Like, I'm not a geopolitical expert, but what I do have some knowledge of, and again, not an expert on this, but what I do have some knowledge of is how markets react to these things. And I do think that at the beginning, like when Trump won, obviously there was a lot of optimism because of the fact that I guess objectively, Trump has been better for crypto in terms of not the markets, but like in terms of the fundamental side of things, where the SEC getting a new pro-crypto head. That's great, right? Getting more regulatory clarity around crypto, actually having crypto at the table. That's all good. But then it's offset by all this stuff that he's doing that I talked about, and also all the grifting that he's doing with his meme coin, with Trump and Melania coin, with other stuff that he's doing. So when you take it as like a whole here, it definitely does seem net negative. I'm glad that we got better, we got a better SEC chair. I'm glad that Gensler is gone, but you kind of have to think sometimes, was it worth the price? Because the price that's being paid right now isn't just a financial price. It's also a price of geopolitical uncertainty. It's also a price of, of things like, okay, well, if Russia takes over Ukraine, for example, what does that mean for the rest of Europe? Does Europe go to war again? Are we actually going to get World War III? Is China going to take Taiwan? Like, there's all these things that are just leading to so much uncertainty. And as I said, markets hate that. So when you think about it from a relatively unbiased perspective, don't bring politics into this, and don't bring your views into this. Just think about it from what you can see. You can see how it's not good for markets. You can see how this period of time is going to be turbulent. But in saying all of that, and I said this as well in the Daily Gwei Discord channel, that I'm still very long-term bullish on Ethereum and ETH. I still think that Ethereum is going to play a very important role in the world going forward. I do think that the world's economy is going to come on chain, and Ethereum is going to be a big part of that. I do think ETH is going to capture a lot of that value, but I and you and many other people and most people in the world have absolutely zero control over what happens with markets. Like, there's absolutely no control over that. The best you can do is protect yourself by taking risk off the table, taking profits, as I've been talking about for a while now, and don't buy into things like this has happened this way, so it has to happen in the past, so it has to happen this way in the future. I've talked about this as well in terms of crypto cycles. Everyone was expecting this cycle to play out the same as the other ones. BTC pumps first, ETH goes next, and then alts follow. We didn't get it like that. We had meme coins and crime and celebrity coins, and BTC did all right, yeah, and ETH went to 4K, which is, it's still pretty good from its bottom, but ETH didn't go to a new all-time high. ETH got overshadowed by a lot of different things, and now ETH is where it is, and that's the short to medium term kind of reality of it. But long term, as I said, still extremely bullish on Ethereum, still extremely bullish on ETH, but we'll have to see what happens going forward. The uncertainty needs to subside before markets can react positively in any way there. But anyway, I think on that note, I'm going to finish for today. Just a reminder, there'll be no episode on Wednesday, probably not one on Friday, so I'll probably catch you guys next week at this stage. But yeah, thank you for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all next week. Thanks, everyone.